All right, we're going to move into our next bit, which I'm going to take over here. And we'll provide an update. I'm trying to help Tara run the show as well as present here. So just got to reconfigure. I want to spend some time talking about things more specific to event organizers, and as I go through this, I'd like to introduce Stuart Lamp. A lot of you know Stuart is our Director of Event Services at USA Cycling, and he is going to be taking over answering questions and playing air traffic controller for the chat functionality. He'll also be providing some links in. Don't feel like you have to grab those immediately. We're going to provide all those to you along with a survey after the presentation. So you have plenty of time to dig into those items. So with that, I'm gonna just cover a good chunk of the recap of 2020 for events and looking forward into 21 and build a little on what Rob said. When I get done, Mari Holden is going to do more talking about youth and the Let's Ride campaign. So with that said, I want to give a little review of sort of where we were in 2020, both before and after COVID hit, about a year ago this week almost. So a little on 2020, for the first time in years, we were actually trending up on events. I didn't put in the graph, but we've seen a steady decline in at least the racing portion, and have made up some of that with rods, which are centuries and gravel events. For the first time up until March 1, we were up pretty significantly in some segments in the race community, both on the road and mountain bike side. We hadn't gotten enough in the cross at that point in 2020 to have a viewpoint, but basically these were because of some new strategies we'd implemented. And I think we're finally seeing some of the bottoming out on the competitive side of the sport, and I'll use that word just this once. We did some incentives with mountain bike organizers. We worked on our mountain bike license pricing to bring it more in line. Just went out and approached the market and tried to be more in the mode of working with organizers and relieving burdens. And you'll see this as far as what we're looking at for 21, start to work on some incentives with organizers. Sort of the good news I see in this is pre-COVID, we were actually trending upward for the first time in several years. So we feel like on the rod and race side that things were getting better from what we'd seen in the years before, both for our organization and in general. And then COVID hit. Just to give you an idea where we ended up the year, we saw a 75% decrease in events last year. We ran about 20% of our normal event participant load, and that had some obvious financial implications, as Rob talked about. Also saw a definite change in those events. I think everybody has seen this in events as well as general life. Smaller groups, social distancing. We did have events happening. They were happening differently, and they're modifying how they operate. A big shift, and we heard a little of this in our road breakout to virtual and challenge events. That's actually a challenge, but a positive as well. And we had to really rethink risk mitigation with events. We'll talk a little about that more, but COVID impacted our business just like everybody, but we have some new opportunities because of it. I think this summit is a great example. We did this for years in person. It was smaller, it was costly. You couldn't come and go. Now we're able to do it virtually, and we've sort of been forced to do that. And even though we can't sit there and have a glass of wine afterwards together, we can get together and exchange ideas, which is really valuable. What we think we're going to see in 2021, and you'll hear a little more from Ross Krause with Bike Reg about this a little later. Definitely, we're seeing this as a soft start to 2021. And we feel like summer and onward, we're going to see not necessarily a back to normal, but definitely some strengthening of events. We've seen an enormous amount of events move to the fall in anticipation of vaccination and a tamping down of COVID. We're going to implement some new business opportunities I'll talk about in a minute. And we've managed to stabilize our insurance, which I hate talking about insurance, but it's critical, and you're going to hear a bit about it. Our national championships and calendars are looking really good. We've got to make some decisions on some of our early nationals, but we feel pretty bullish about things from June and onward. And our national calendars are actually looking good. Our Pro Road Tour is stable. We've moved a ton of those events, and a lot of those organizers are on right now to the fall in conjunction with them. And we have seen actually some improvement. We had a call with our pro cyclocross directors looking at the fall. We've redone that calendar, and again, it's looking really strong. Rob mentioned a couple new initiatives. Well, we'll talk about the organizer subsidy. We have the deal with NICA, where we're recognizing their events for our results and rankings, along with other juniors that are getting free memberships, and it's a good deal with them. And our teams are actually looking pretty good. The UCI teams, we've added actually one team rolling into this year, and our domestic elite teams as well, the layer just below that, are pretty stable. Same with our mountain bike UCI teams. People want to get back out there and either come to your rod or come to your race. There's a huge pent-up demand. It's just going to take a bit more mitigation and patience from all of us until we see some type of return to normal. And I think not just in our sport, but in general. Just a general update on us. 2020 was hard. We are not complaining because we know the societal impacts, and all have friends who've been impacted and family have been impacted, and also personally. We had about a 40% decrease in staffing over the course of the year, and that was through both furloughs and layoffs. As an example, my department, which is the event operations, we went from 16 to 5 staff. During 1 week, of those 5 staff, 2 of them were sick. It got pretty lonely in the office for a little while. And on top of that, and I think everyone saw this again in their personal lives, we weren't putting on events necessarily, but we had a ton of workload coming in. And I think our COVID mitigation plan is a great example. It's something that we had to completely pivot and do something different for the community, and the staff really stepped up. We're looking better already. Matt, Brandon, and Trish, who are our regional managers, are all back. Trish started back Monday, so they're there to provide you all support. And Alicia Frazier, who is awesome, and most of you know, and the officials summit was a love fest for Alicia for about 10 minutes with everybody thanking her. She's managing all our permitted and event services, doing a great job there. And we have managed to retain a lot of the talent and knowledge with the organization and keep that on board and bring them back. And staff really did rise to the occasion. It was a really tough time, but I'm really proud of how staff handled it and dealt with everything. I want to talk about insurance, as unfun as insurance is.
Hey, Chuck.
Yep, go ahead. Sorry.
Before we go into that, Amara did have a question, and I think now would be a good time before we get into insurance to discuss the national, at least where things are lining up for national championships. But the question was, is indoor track nats in early July still looking good? And I don't know if you and Tara want to just kind of give a quick overview of where we're at.
Sure, I'd be happy to answer that question. So the schedule that we published, we're still moving forward with that published schedule, but as like last year, things can change. We're continuing to assess whether, for instance, indoor track nats or outdoor track nats is better. We do still have some time before July comes up, where hopefully we'll get to a scenario where indoor track nats is going to be okay. But for every single national championship, we are talking to our LOCs. We're checking the health department websites to see what restrictions they have. We are going to be starting a national championship newsletter that will come out monthly, and we'll be providing updates through that. That way everybody is, there's an outlet for updated information every single month. So we'll continue to update people through that, and then our normal kind of social media accounts and any press releases if things do change. But things can change. I'll just say that things can change, and we're continuing to assess what's going to happen and what's going to be the safest for all of our national championships.
And I will say that I think by the time we got done at the end of 2020, Tara was on version 15 of our national championship schedule and plan, which unfortunately ended up in the cancellation of most of them. But, you know, just like a lot of you, again, with your events, we constantly looked at options of changing events, moving events, rescheduling events. And it was a lot like playing whack-a-mole last year, as we all know. I still remember talking to Rob in March, and the conversation was, well, was June 2022 earlier, or should we move this to July? And now we sort of all look back at that and say, wow, we just had no idea. But we're learning, and we do feel better. And you'll hear from Dr. Rashawn tomorrow. I think some relatively positive news on where we're headed with pandemic. So thanks, Tara. I think we're caught up. I'm going to move into insurance. Again, this is, I'm not an insurance salesman, and we're not trying to sell. I think we're trying to educate and be transparent on our insurance product, but this is hugely important for all of you. Stuart is going to put in a link. I'm going to get through this relatively quickly. We did do an hour webinar for our organizers, and Stuart is going to post the link for that in chat. It is up on our website, and we go much more in depth on what I'm about to cover now, and I'll do it relatively quickly. So just want to talk about insurance costs, because this is one of the biggest costs you all have and the biggest interactions with USA Cycling if you sanction with them. With us, we are in a very tough market right now. The day we did the insurance webinar, we found out that 2 of our fellow national governing bodies under the USOPC were not even able to get insurance this year. I talked to a couple organizations, one of whom's on the phone right now, and they had a really tough time acquiring their insurance, and luckily got some. Claims are going up. The market's tough. I just put a couple of quotes in there so you know it's not me talking. It's a hard market to hit. We've managed to actually stabilize, and I'll get into some of those costs. We were afraid we were going to have a really, really bad year, and it's ended up not so bad, actually. The other is COVID has had huge impacts on the market. Everyone's scared. I put some stuff in here in regards to the impacts. What we have found, and unfortunately for this year, we're under the same considerations as everyone out. We were one of the last organizations that actually did not have a disease exclusion in their policy. Especially among the national governing bodies. A couple other sanctioning organizations already had that. And we have not seen a policy issued for 2021 anywhere that doesn't have a communicable disease exclusion. That would cover an exclusion for COVID claims. And we do have that exclusion for 21 when we've not before. So we're letting you know that. Every grocery store, restaurant, etc., has those exclusions right now. So we're in no means alone. It's just something to be aware of. We feel, and again, we go into much more detail on the insurance webinar on this. We feel okay with where we're at, and keep in mind that our insurance is your insurance out there pretty much. Where we are with the pandemic, where we are, if you're following all the guidelines you're supposed to and doing what you're supposed to by your health departments, we feel pretty good about where we sit, but we just do want you to know that that's an exclusion for this year, and it's something everybody's dealing with. If you have any specific questions on that, what it means, feel free to reach out to me or Stuart directly. Watch that insurance webinar, and we can take it from there. But I think the main lesson, and we'll talk more on the COVID guidelines, is do what you're supposed to be doing by your local health department. I don't think anybody in the US can walk out their door now and not know that leaving their house puts them at risk for COVID. That's not a good thing, but it makes us a little more risk tolerant on things, is the best way to put it. I want to talk about fees, and Stuart's going to put the schedule of fees up here because this is a cost that you all bear. Rob mentioned the way we've normally done this is we go out and buy our insurance for the year in December, and we cut a huge check. I think it was actually with our deductible about $2.8 million last year. what we do is write a big check, and then all those insurance surcharges that you all pay basically go back to pay that down. So in simple terms, we take that number, divide it by the number of anticipated event days, and that's what we charge. And as you saw earlier, we paid that big bill and we ran at about 20% of our normal load for payback on that. So I'll let you do the mental math. We took a huge hit on insurance and we didn't get a refund. So what we've done this year is change that model up. It'll be relatively transparent for you all, but we don't have as much upside if we have a great year, but we don't have the downside. We've focused a little more with the insurance company on paying by the event. And I just want to be, again, transparent about how we work this up. We're estimating about 377,000 event days next year. We take our cost of event liability insurance and other costs, divide it by that number. It comes out to what you all should be paying is about $514 a day. We have decided to subsidize that from the start. So we are putting money towards, knowing restarting cycling is going to be a bit tough. We're subsidizing that insurance on top and lowering it to, in most cases, $5 and $4 for others, with a pathway to less cost. If we have more than 377,000 event days, we don't make any more money. Basically, it just covers itself. But if we have less than that, if for some reason things don't get better, we are a bit protected, and we're also able to protect you all on the costs. So our CFO has done a really good job of working with our insurance company and try to stabilize these costs. There was a chance, we wouldn't have an insurance policy, which means you wouldn't have an insurance policy. A little on the pricing, and I'll go into a little more detail. General rods, gravel races are $5 with a path to $470. Charity and fun rods are $4. We did institute a $125 minimum this year on all of our pricing. That means that as soon as your surcharge is past 125, you just pay what the surcharge is. But we have some hard upfront costs, so we did implement that. You can do the math, 125 divided by 5 gives you a break-even point. We felt it was really reasonable. That is well below what we're going to pay per event, but we just had to do some protection. We also have a new virtual challenge category. So that's, and we heard, again, some organizers talking about this in the networking. If you've got an event that is go out and ride 100 miles, posted on Strava for our organization, there is quite a bit of risk in that. We've managed to work with the insurance company to provide basically a $3 per rider charge for that. That will extend that protection of our insurance coverage to you all for that. And if you think there's no risk in there, there is. If you're telling someone to go out and ride their bike, especially if you're telling them to go at a certain time or on a certain road, there are things there you need to be concerned about. So we've worked hard to provide reasonable coverage on that. All right, I'll move on and talk a little about what we cover. Again, I'm going to quickly go through this. I will tell you, and I've gone out and bought insurance for my events pre-USAC in the market. We provide really good coverage, and it's very tailored towards cycling events. You're named insured on our policy. We can cover third-party organizers, race directors. If you are an event director, like I used to be an event director for a nonprofit, they hired me, and I was able to be included on the insurance because I was on the permit. You all know who've done events. We can easily get additional insured certs done for you and to you very quickly. Again, pre-USA Cycling, I had to go buy an additional insured cert for one of my events to put an antenna on top of a building. It was $100 and it took a week. We're charging $13 and you get them in 24 hours. So we do require a written contract on that. That can be an email. You can listen to our webinar for more details. And we do have the optional auto policy. I know of 2 people on this call who've been involved in claims where that policy has covered them, and that's an additional deal. And I bet they will both tell you that they are so glad they had it when they had an issue at their event. Just a couple things, if you all go out in the market and look, and we are happy always to take a look at any insurance anyone's offering you and get a broker to look at it and see what's missing. We offer participant and spectator liability. We know of several events that have been running under a general liability policy who are not covered for lawsuits from their own participants. And that's obviously a huge, huge claim. Temporary structures, sexual abuse and molestation, all through this. A big one a lot of people don't think about is volunteers. Does your insurance cover your volunteers? And more importantly for you, are you covered for the actions of your volunteers? You know, these are all just things that our policy covers. We want you guys to look at if you're looking at any alternatives out there, and we're happy to talk with you on it. All right, so I want to talk a little about one of our initiatives, the subsidy program, to help get those prices down for you. Besides the price structure, as Rob talked about, you know, we've really walked into this year understanding more than ever that it's good for all of us to have people at your events. It's good for us, it's good for you, and we want to help drive people to your events and have a successful event for everybody, a successful organization. So the way we've looked at this is trying to help you all through both financial and non-financial support. So some insurance, but also some marketing. Send people to your events. We actually have access to really good databases of people who aren't members of ours right now. We want to have participation from folks, especially on the race side, who have, for not good reasons, have been excluded. And in some cases, there are good financial reasons, but that's youth, women, juniors, groups of our population who are underrepresented. I'll talk a little more in detail about that. And as Rob mentioned, providing benefit to our members when they go to an event that does not require that membership. And this goes to some of the questions of how can we make that membership more valuable? And we do want this to be mutually beneficial. So I'm going to go through some of the broad ideas we're looking at, but if you've got a really good idea where we can help each other and it's doable, talk to Stuart and his crew about it. We are really open. I mean, we saw the comment in chat about having someone in a criterium with a booth. You know, if we can do that with volunteers or others, we'd love to work with you on that kind of thing. So let's talk about some of the subsidies. Going to provide insurance subsidies to you all above what we put on the top. We want to provide targeted discounts to race events and member benefits at ROD events. A ROD event's anything that doesn't require a license. That's how we, or membership, that's how we divide it. Drive participation, and we want to advertise your event. So how are we going to do that? This is for races. So anything that requires a membership, road, mountain bike, cross, track, is the way we want to handle this is provide fee assistance and insurance and marketing to you all, but we're going to ask some things in return. And what we've developed, and this is going to be built out in our permitting system in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we've already seen the demos of it, is we're going to give a menu of items we're going to ask you to do, and you pick a certain number of those. Again, a lot of these are really easy lifts. And if you fulfill those, we're going to market them, we're going to market you, and we're going to provide an insurance discount. Stuart's going to put in a link to the specific document on those incentives and sort of the inner workings of them. Don't dig through them right now, you'll lose what I'm saying, but click on that in a bit. As an example for races, if you do prize money equality, if you do a novice race experience, and we've defined what that is in that document. If you do a dedicated women's or juniors race, new rider clinics, uploading of results in a certain time frame. Again, some of these are very easy. We will advertise those and give you an insurance discount. And you'll pick those things in permitting. And if you do them, when you go to check out after your event with the post-event surcharge, it'll reflect a $4.70 instead of $5 price on your insurance. So we would welcome you. I've already gotten some good comments, especially from a couple people on the phone or on the chat. This will be a growing, evolving list. Our goal is to do right by the sport. And if you're doing right by the sport, to advertise that and reward you for it. So we're open to solutions. I guarantee you this program will change over the year, and that's a good thing. But we have a good baseline to start from. and we'll go from there. Talk a little more about the rod events, which is a little different. So this is your gravel rods, your century rods, your rods that people are not being required to have a membership for. We want to provide the same types of incentives for you to be involved in this, which is make it less expensive for you, market your event. We're going to ask for a few different things on this. What we would like, and Rob mentioned a few of them, is benefits for our members there. And those would be things like a better start corral. We've worked with some organizers who said, well, we'll give USA Cycling members 15% off on event merchandise, an extra free ticket to the beer tent, access to something post-event that not everybody gets access to. We have a nice rider toolkit that we can brand with your event and send that out to all your membership. Submit those results to us. Even though it's not a race, we want to be able to start putting those into our ranking system because we're going to do some cool things in the future. We don't want these to be a huge cost to the organizer, but what we want is our members, if they go to your event, to see some value in that USA Cycling membership at your event. And again, we are willing to work with you on some cool things with this and make it more valuable. And as an event organizer, I think it's much more powerful. And we saw this with our NAPRD road group weeks ago. It's much more powerful when you send out a message to your participants saying, this is what your USA Cycling membership will get you at the event than it is for us to do that. They're coming to your event and a message out like, we're working with USA Cycling. If you have a membership, then you get a free beer ticket, whatever, at our event. That's a big message coming from you all. Likewise, we have access to people you don't and can market to those people for your event with that same messaging, is that this event's offering memberships, go do it. And by the way, if you have a membership, you get this extra. So Ashley did ask a question here in chat about a portion of memberships going back to the LAs, that's the local association. Ashley, we've actually expanded that. We used to just pay we paid on memberships and we paid on event days to the LA, and we had a formula, and that was only for road, track, and cyclocross. What we did this year with the local associations is we changed that and we broadened that across all categories. So our local associations are actually now being funded by event days from gravel, stuff that they haven't been involved with, because we want them to help us grow this. So yeah, it's a great question. We're doing it on event days, participant days, and it's across any participant days now outside of what we've traditionally done. So good question for those of you who are involved in the LAs.
Just to clarify real quick on that, just so Ashley and others are aware, the membership aspect is no longer included with that LA rebate. So it is just the racer days portion that comes back to the LAs based on rider days in their area.
Yep. So thanks. I probably wasn't clear on that. We have taken the membership portion, but we've expanded the other, and obviously it's how much you pay per as well that matters. But we want the local associations to get much more involved in helping to bring, and if they bring people to your event, if it's not a race, they're going to be financially rewarded for it. So we want our LAs to get even more involved, and a lot of them have really bought into that philosophy. And again, this is all work in progress as we move forward. I want to talk just show you a couple of things we're looking at, and not all this is implemented right now. This is just a mock-up we did of what we're calling our smart calendar. So if you're a race and you do a junior only event, and again, I'll invite you to go dig through some of those items that we've got in the document that Stuart sent. We're going to advertise you're doing a junior event. If you're doing a novice friendly event where you're doing a little special program for our new riders, we're going to put a logo on the calendar with that information and advertise that out to our community. You see on the bottom one there, that's a rod, and they're offering member benefits to us. So we're going to say, if you go to this, you get member benefits if you're a USA Cycling member. We also are going to have the ability, and this is going to get better. It's not going to be perfect to start, but this is going to be better as we get through the year, is be able to more specifically target. We are now using Salesforce and Marketo, and our goal is to build in the wide database we have with the specifics of this, where if you're doing a novice-friendly event at your race, we can take a look at people in your area who've done hard gravel rods, hard grand fondos, may not have raced, but we know they're doing hard events, and say, hey, this crit has a novice-friendly event that is catered toward your entry into racing, and be able to specifically market to them. We will have that implemented. I'm not going to overpromise that to start. We're going to do the best we can with what we have now with that marketing, and can do some good stuff, but we're painfully aware that we need to be better at marketing your events and our events to the people who want to see it, and not use the broad sledgehammer. Nippy asked about why can't race directors get access to email lists. I think you all probably, hopefully all understand how valuable databases and IP is, intellectual property. And I'm not worried about specific people, but we've got to worry about releasing that information out to the world, because that's number one, valuable, and number two, very easy to be abused. If we give our email list out to any of you, it can be sold, used, and I'm not saying anybody would do that, but it's just something we've got to be aware of. And we have the same with event organizers. Event organizers don't want to give us their database for the exact same reason. So Nippy, what we've done is work to go collectively with you all and the LAs, and try to market on your behalf for those. And if you have specifics, again, feel free to reach out to Stuart. But that is the reasoning behind that. I hope everybody respects their individual databases. So Ray just said, opt in for people interested in USAC sanctioned events. That's an idea, Ray, of having people allow us to hand that over to organizers, and us putting some controls. We do have that built into rider accounts, so they can opt in and opt out of certain things. That's got to be done better. And we just got Salesforce going last year, and it's still being implemented, but that's something that we could look at building in. So that's a great comment. All right, I'm going to move on through this. Actually, I think I'm relatively done. So I'm going to open it up for Q&A from everybody, and see if we have any specific questions in chat, or for me in particular, before we go into Mari's section of this. And good questions so far, thanks. All right. And nothing else in chat.